You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. This is our Austrian Grand Prix race review, and it was a fun one. Dynamic wheel-to-wheel action between the two title contenders. Could you ask for more? If that wasn't enough, there was also a fascinating tyre strategy race, followed by a mad dash to the line through traffic. The defending champion was taken out by a young hotshot, fresh from a Canadian Grand Prix podium. The F2 champion scored their first points after an outstanding Saturday, and the young Argentinian hopeful clashed with Tsunoda and ran the championship leader off track, whilst a lap down, hindering him for a chase towards the lead. Pretty good fun, if you ask me. We are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind permission of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I'm joined by red-hot YouTube streamer and watch-along expert. It's Scott Stuffey Tuffy. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Spanners. Good to be back at talking about one of my favourite races of the season. I love this circuit, and I think it's so good to see it extended for the next 16 odd years because we saw some great wheel-to-wheel fighting today.
It's fast becoming a fan favourite, and I think what we're all realising is that it's reliable, so we can look forward to the Austrian Grand Prix without too much fear. We don't have to lower our expectations. There's always racing.
100%. In an era where we have been to multiple tracks already this year, historic tracks where it's been a procession, there was none of that here today, and that was the case all the way up and down the grid.
Yeah, and we're also joined by, I'm so pleased I get to say this, we're also joined by TV commentator person and Le Mans commentator, Chris Stevens. Hello, Chris.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, it's me. I'm back. And we here at Missed Apex vehemently disagree with the advice that Will Joseph was giving to Lando Norris about turn 6 today.
What was he saying? He was saying, get in front
Hit the apex.
Hit the apex. No. We want to miss the apex. Yeah, some really fascinating interactions on team radio, and I think more than ever we get this great insight into what the teams are doing, not just the fact that there's a bit of driver management, and we saw it a lot in the Spanish Grand Prix where they were telling them exactly where to put their wheels. You know, make sure you go easy on your front left tyre through turn 3, let's tyre save through turn 8, or when they were telling Leclerc, okay, if you stay off the curb here that would be better, and he just went no. But in this Grand Prix, what was clear was that both McLaren cars were able to have conversations with their own team engineer and their own side of the garage, and they were allowed to compete against each other. And so McLaren have really set out this stall where they go, no, we think we're the championship contenders, just the two of us drivers, massively aided by Kimi Antonelli today, just cementing the fact that Verstappen probably isn't in the title hunt. And they've managed to create this atmosphere where they're going to have a genuine inter-team competition without all the bitterness of Hamilton-Rosberg. Chris?
But the best team radio message actually went on broadcast today, and it was from Oscar Piastri towards the end of the race going through the traffic.
What's your language?
Yeah, so I'll give you a PG version of what he said, but it was about the Alpines still finding a way to screw him over.
Oh my
Which,
God.
if you don't get that, look up Oscar Piastri's most viral tweet.
Yeah, I was surprised when I heard that as well. I was like, why is everyone saying this? Is this something someone's just made up online?
I thought it was a joke.
He generally did say it because of Colapinto, which we'll get to, had his moment there and could have completely taken him out of the race. But when it came to strategy options, that was something, Spanners, that I was really taken aback by, because so often do we see, I think even in the Mercedes era, there was never this allowance of an offset of strategy. It was, you guys sort this out on track, basically. You're not allowed to try and do offsets of strategy. And I thought, maybe there's something untoward going here. But clearly it seems like there's been some discussions behind the scenes, and they're able to, have this inter-team battle, including difference in strategy, because it was influential in today's result.
Well, obviously, we just spoke to Mike Caulfield midweek, and he was talking about Austria 2016, where they had this kind of situation, and basically one car wasn't allowed to get a strategy advantage over another car. So Rosberg was down the grid, so they gave him an early pit stop so that he could sort of undercut a bunch of cars and get up to P2. And then Rosberg was kind of like, I don't want to take my second stop now. I'll keep the track advantage I've inherited. Thank you very much. And they manufactured a way, basically, for Lewis to get back ahead. Whereas it seems here, it's not a dissimilar thing, Chris. They basically seem to be going, well, you can't undercut from P2. So if you're the lead car, you're going to get that race advantage. We're not going to give you a strange different strategy, but you can actively try to beat your teammate using your tyres, using your track position. And even with Piastri saying, well, it's up to you if you want to push to race now. And I don't think that was permission to race or not. I got the feeling that was, it's your choice whether to save your tyres and sit back or whether to go push and race. And they left that in the driver's hands. And that's pretty good going, man.
Oh, I definitely read that as permission to race.
Oh,
and fair play to McLaren. Bearing in mind, 2 weeks ago, one ran into the back of the other. They would have had every right to just say, nope, that's it. We've called it right now, because there was that time at Mercedes when they were the dominant force, when, the first part of 2014, they were able to run different strategies. The great duel in the desert in Bahrain between Hamilton and Rosberg was famously because Rosberg was on a far superior set of tyres. But then after they started running into each other a little bit too much, they weren't allowed to have those strategy offsets anymore. So fair play to McLaren to go for it. Yeah, they weren't going to box Oscar first and give him the undercut. But he was presented with the options. Would you rather be closer to him after your first stop, or do you want to be further behind with a bigger delta in the tyre life and tyre performance? And based on recent racing history, I felt like he made the right choice.
Okay.
No, but here's the thing. It didn't actually translate. Oscar was way more competitive in the first stint. And I feel like him not making the move on track in that first stint probably was the deciding factor today.
So there's an odd thing where the hards almost seem to be less durable in a way. And I think that's something that Mike Caulfield said about whatever tyres they were using in 2016 as well. So tyre management was definitely more of an issue with the hards, and there was a bit more of a gap between the two of them. But Piastri did have a choice, not just whether to extend the attempted overcut, but his tyres were done by then. Not just whether to stay out, basically, to earn himself a tyre delta. He could have not attacked at all in that first stint. There was also a choice there. Waited for Norris to pit, then done an overcut, probably with tyres in better condition, and then each bit of tyre delta he earned would have cost less lap time. So I think there was that choice as well, Scott.
Yeah, there was, definitely. And the thing is that we know in this set of regulations that clean air is king. He's famous words out of his own mouth in Baku last year. So he wanted that track position, and he's a man who's riding a high at the moment. He feels like he's got the better of his teammate. Obviously, what happened in Canada, he wanted to put Lando under pressure. And I think he took the right approach in that first stint of, let's try and force him into a mistake. Let's put my main championship rival under pressure, because every battle, every mini battle is a much larger win and can have a much larger effect over your teammate, who has been more, I guess, open with his feelings and letting people know how things have affected him. So, but today, credit to Lando, he defended brilliantly. And I mean, when the one time Oscar did get past him, he got straight back in the next corner, and it was brilliant to see them go wheel to wheel.
We'll talk about the wheel to wheel very, very soon, because it was so much fun and it was such good racing. But I have to say, if I could have chosen out those strategies we're talking about that Piastri had options to from P2, going on the attack was like a really, really admirable one. I think Norris was sat there going, yeah, but we're all going to tyre save, right? Like we normally do. And Piastri's like, nope, we're going for it. War.
I think the reason they did, and Chris has already alluded to it, is that they had such an advantage. I mean, they were the quickest car all weekend. You could see that from the first practice session. And I mean, they finished so far ahead of the rest of the field, which we'll get to. It was dominant. It was a la 2014 time when Mercedes was so good. And they were so much quicker, even while they were battling. Christian Horner made a comment as well and said, I can't believe how good their tyre management is, because basically Piastri was kissing Lando Norris's exhaust for the first half of the race, and he had no drop off. And I don't think he made the right decision in his strategy, though. I think he should have gone on the attack. If you're riding that high, the best thing to do is try and force your opponent into a mistake, especially someone who has been prone to mistakes. But really, he faltered in that middle stint because I think very influential today was lap traffic. And I think Piastri got, unfortunately, the poor end of it in the middle stint, but then it kind of leveled itself out a bit, but not enough.
I'm going to argue slightly, but after what Chris says. Say stuff, Chris.
Well, I think Oscar's attack today was a little out of nowhere. Based on everything we'd seen throughout the Friday and the Saturday running, Lando had the measure of Oscar throughout the whole weekend.
I agree.
Now, I know a lot of people made a big deal about him being on pole position by half a second, which is a slightly inflated figure because we never saw Oscar's final run because of the yellows. Probably would have put it on the front row of the grid. Definitely nailing Leclerc around the outside at the first corner of the race made a massive difference to his race. But I didn't expect to see Oscar giving it so hard to Lando after a weekend
really
where Lando
good.
looked like the clear number one.
I've got an answer to that. It's because of this track. The DRS has there's 3 DRS zones here at the Red Bull Ring, and this is why we get racing at this circuit and why it's so good. Oscar, on average, was around a tenth to a tenth and a half slower in every session to Lando. However, the DRS, and it came from Lando's mouth himself in his post-race interview, it's worth around 7 tenths here. That is how effective it is here at the Red Bull Ring. So you can be slower, quite considerably slower, yet the car ahead and the DRS can drag you along. And Oscar was not quicker than Lando, but he was not slow enough to an extent, like not too slow to have that advantage on going on the attack. So would he have been able to have pulled away from Lando if he got in the lead? We'll never know, but that's why he was able to maintain that challenge, because of the nature of this circuit.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that had Piastri got past, Norris would have been able to mount a challenge at least equal to the challenge Piastri was mounting. I think one of the key questions in these kind of situations is there anything Piastri could have done differently? And he was so on the front foot in that first stint, and I bet towards the end, he was struggling because both him and Norris, when they stopped fighting a little bit, you could see that the tyres had gone off. So at the end of that first stint, they both lost tyre life. By the time that he's trying to earn his delta on like the quote unquote overcut, he's got a flat spot and the pace of the tyres is kind of gone. And so you go, it's a shame really that he didn't go back himself. Norris has had a slow stop and you kind of go, oh, do you know what? Let's pick that battle up again. He's had a slow stop. I'll come out. I'll be 2 seconds behind him. I'll get back in the DRS and I'll keep fighting. And I just wonder if he'd had so many good attempts and just gone, it's not working. I've got to try something different. Whereas he could have stayed on the front foot.
I wish we could have seen him try the Delta again in the second
I don't think he could have done
stop phase, because he came in. Yeah, he came in almost immediately after Lando, and that was my understanding was that was the team enforced decision. It's the Germany scenario, which is the code for we're taking away the strategy options. You're bringing this home.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. So my read on that was slightly different. Was he had a 4-lap tyre advantage. And there was, a lot made of the fact that he closed it from 6.5 seconds down to 3 seconds. So this is the only bit where I'm pushing back against what Stuffey said, was every time we saw a big leap down in the timings, it seemed like Norris was catching every single back marker through turns 5, 6, and 7. You go, what? And so he's losing all that high speed thing because it was coming down like that. It was coming down in chunks. If you were looking at the sector times, they were fairly even, and then you get this big loss of time through a couple of sectors. The feeling I got was then once that happened, and he asked for help on the radio. He was like, where am I losing this time? And they said to him, all in the high speed corners, all through traffic. And then he sees the gap come down to it was under 3 seconds at one point, and then he just started pulling away. So when he wanted to pull away and he felt that gap was too small, he pulled away. And then we started to see a drop off in Piastri's tyres at that point. And I think that was a key difference in this race, was that Norris had better tyre management in that hard tyre phase.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why the overall decision, there wasn't enough of a delta. And the thing is that Piastri, by nearly going into the back, doing basically roles reversed of what
the turn four. Go on, tell me your take on that turn four, Scott.
Oh my goodness. Well, Piastri's just trying to poke his nose. He's trying to push Lando out of position. He's trying to force him into a mistake. And it's a corner that's so inviting to do so. You lunge late to the inside into turn four at the bottom of the hill, and especially when you've got DRS. And as the driver ahead is turning in, they can sometimes catch a glimpse of you in their rearview mirror and they panic and back out of the apex. Yeah. Lando did no such thing, and I imagine the fear of God was just, or Piastri's heart just stopped for that half a second because it was so close of just wiping both of them out.
Stuffy, I think it's a reasonable thing because Norris can be quite conservative. I think if you send it, the chances of him yielding are fairly high.
It's a reasonable tactic that you see in all motorsport series at the Red Bull Ring now. It's the sort of it's the nature of the corner, and that should have been his tactic continued on there. And I think maybe that one, and he got a radio message as well, which may have played into his decision of his strategy. Now, what I think about in him accepting the fourth lap delta, because it came on the radio, his engineer, and he went, "What happened at turn 4 was too close. We're not to do that again." And that's basically code for Zach Brown has been on the phone and told us, don't you ever try that again after what just happened in Canada. And that may have, struck the fear of God.
Oh my God. Can you imagine, though, that the translation? So Zach Brown, he wasn't there at the track, was he? But he's phoning up going, "You tell Piastri, if he takes a risk with both my cars again, I'm going to string him. I'm going to pull his spine out. I'm going to use it as a belt." And then the race engineer goes, "Yeah, we've just had a message from management, Oscar. We think turn 4 might have been a little close to the bone. If you could draw it back a little bit, that would be great. Thanks."
I think then him receiving that flat spot, I think he was trying to push for that pit stop. I think his first instinct was to go, "I want to pit instantly," because he was complaining about the flat spot, and they went. Then
it's the undercut, isn't it?
They went no, but then, and you're talking about secret messages. They went, "Well, Oscar, we're looking at the data and it shows that absolutely everything is fine." And that, I think, was the secret message of, "You're to stay out, buddy."
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. No, I'm telling you, it's a flat spot and bouncing around. Well, yeah. Basically, the data says, "Suck it up, Buttercup."
Well, wasn't it that lap, the lap of the lockup, when Lando then came in? So
it was close. It was either that one or it was the next lap. It wasn't long after anyway. Yeah. But
it was like a last chance saloon. If I want to get in first, which is going to be the deciding factor in this race, then I need to make this move now. And do you know that is the first moment of not perfectly level-headedness that we've seen from Oscar since they've been given a race-winning car, really.
And also,
you never see him make those kind of mistakes. And actually, even in qualifying, if you go back, you watch you watch the footage of him reacting to the yellows. Even him sounding a bit angry is like chiller than most people, but you can see he's not bubbling it, but he's sort of simmering.
No, okay. I want you to listen to any normal Oscar Piastri interview, right? And then listen to his comments in qualifying, because I had a friend. He's English, but his parents were from Scotland, and he would get, as he got angrier, he would get increasingly Scottish, and it would just sneak in. So he'd be like, "Oh, I don't really like how this is going, and it's starting to really get into my sporran." Listen to Piastri. He sounds so Australian as he's getting annoyed in qualifying.
But I really thought when he had the run on him out of 4 and 5, and then he was looking on the inside at 6, I really thought that was going to be
I thought
the moment. And he was being so clever there because Lando kept leaving this like half-cut space on the inside. And Oscar, even if he just has, and it's an oval racing tactic as well. If you even have like a corner of your wing in clean air, it helps massively. But there was one element to it that Oscar and a lot of drivers weren't quite able to nail in this one. We've seen a lot of drivers being able to manage the DRS line going into the turn 3 hairpin. Because the super ideal situation you want is you're in the tow, you're going to make a pass into turn 3, but just be behind. You know, you're not. You can still be side by side, but just behind when you get to that detection line, so that you then get the DRS down the next straight. as well, and you don't get immediately repassed down that subsequent straight. Oscar didn't manage to do that, and I don't think anyone else was able to judge that perfectly. We've seen the best wheel-to-wheel racers are able to nail that judgment.
There was one driver, and it's going to frustrate this panel and some of the panelists because they're not his biggest fan. Fernando Alonso.
I'm a big fan. I'm a Fernando
brilliant.
fan. Can I just say, I am an Alonso fan. I just don't wish him success. Like necessarily.
You're saying it now. No, he, in his defence at the end when he was defending from Gabriel Bortoleto, he utilised that perfectly, and it's the main reason why he held on considerably older tyres at the time. But you're talking about that, Chris. I know that from sim racing. Yeah. This track is a 1-for-1 on the sims that I race on, and it's a tactic that you use all the time because most of the time the driver's going to park it on the inside because that's the way to defend the corner, and then you park it on the inside going into turn 4 as well, and you make them go the long way around because of the nature of the corner. And Piastri came out second best today. I think Lando can take a lot of positives from this weekend, not just his raw pace, but he didn't just drive away with this. He won it in a manner where he beat his teammate wheel to wheel, and that's big for this championship.
And I think so far, Piastri's been the far stronger wheel to wheel. When it's come to like combat decisions, Piastri's built for combat? Question mark?
Yeah. And not running into the back of people in straight lines kind of driver.
Oh my God. I've watched that back so many times in the Canada thing. There was so much room to the right. There was so much room. 8 cars could have passed to the right-hand side.
You know, he did it again in free practice, though, with Max. When Max was going slow, there was a million miles of space.
I'm going to defend him there.
Go on then.
Max was dawdling. It's like a middle lane driver who is just slightly to the left, then moving slightly to the right side of the lane. Chris, you won't know this because you don't drive.
Because you can't drive at 30. You pathetically can't drive at 30,
Max was dawdling. He would look like he was going to the right, and then he looked like he was coming back to the left. So I think Max was a little bit lucky there, to be honest with you, and at least didn't get a slap on the wrist from the stewards. I'm going to defend Lando there.
Spanners? Spanners. I'm not 30.
Okay, sorry.
Let me just make this plainly clear.
I've lost track. Okay. But you still should be able to drive. Mia in our Patreon live chat says the panel need AC. I feel for them. It is so hot. We are all so hot. And we tried to run cooling solutions, but it was affecting the sound too much. So we sacrificed our cooling for the audio. And I have to say that is because the UK is in a bit of a heat wave at the moment, which has big connotations for the Mercedes-powered engines when we get to Silverstone. So midweek, we're going up into... this is not going to sound like a lot, but come and sit in 30-degree heat in the UK and you'll understand. You know, I've been around the world. I am from around the world, and the UK heat does hit a little differently. So 30 in the UK is very, very uncomfortable. I don't quite know if that's going to extend. I think there might be storms coming in towards the weekend, which could make things very interesting as well at Silverstone. But if you want to join our patrons in the Discord, that's running 24/7, but it's great on race day. That is for our patrons. Consider supporting us at patreon.com/missedapex. All the perks and the ad-free stuff is at the $5 tier, so most people are in there. $5 a month. Try it out. That's the only reason that we are able to do this as frequently as we can, and why we have the kind permission of our partners in order to do it. The one racing maneuver I really wanted to talk about was when Piastri did briefly get ahead. So, like we say, Piastri has had the measure of Norris in general, wheel to wheel, and has looked the better racer even when he's racing against the likes of Verstappen, and that has just been a reality of this teammate battle. I think Norris on his best day is faster in qualifying. I think he's got better tyre management, but the wheel to wheel has been firmly in Piastri's camp. But when Piastri got by on the DRS through kink 2 and then towards turn 3, Norris switched from the inside, where he'd let Piastri go to the outside, switched from the inside all the way out the outside to pull off an amazing switchback with DRS. And I'd be interested to know if he even lifted a little bit to make sure that he did get the DRS into turn 4, because that was an excellent maneuver. And it was only the curve towards turn 4 that put him alongside, and then being able to hold it into turn 4. To me, that's one of the moves of the season and one of the racing sequences of the season so far.
Yeah, that was pure racing brain, as we mentioned, where only really can pinpoint Alonso utilised that, knowing where the DRS line was. Lando knew exactly what he wanted to do there. And because Oscar Piastri had already gone up the inside and was too acute on his entry, because he's gone for that overtaking to turn 3, he has to delay his throttle inputs. He has to limit that wheel spin. And Lando, because he's basically on the racing line, he's gone to the outside to then ensure he can hit the apex. He straight lined his entry. And before Piastri can even think about, I'm going to cover back the inside line, because I'm sure if he was given the opportunity, Piastri would have done so. Lando was already alongside him and he had his DRS open, and there was no opportunity for Piastri to even hold on to that move that he'd just made into turn 3. And I think that, credit to Lando, is probably what he learned last year from potentially fighting Max Verstappen.
I'm going to scrutinise Lando a little bit.
Scrutiny.
I'm going to warn you a little bit now before we get all the comments saying, oh my God, you can tell how much they hate Lando. Right?
Yo, but what about our famous British bias, Chris? Come on, you got to
I
maintain.
know, right? It's such a double-edged sword. I can't believe. So did the maneuver not really come about because he went off at the final corner?
No, because it was T1. Yeah, it was turn 1. He had a bit of the rear end loss as well on T1.
But he went fully like in the gravel out of the last corner at one point enough. As well.
So yeah,
then I think was slow.
Oh, okay. So in that case, we've got this catalogue of the 2 times Piastri got a real good run. One was off at the final corner, so I missed that. And then the earlier one, when he got a really good run early on, was turn 3 up and over the crest and just lost the rear end a little bit down to turn 4.
Yeah, no. So Chris is right. He did lose it in the gravel there. However, I remember this. Piastri really got onto his rear, and he correctly, because you don't really ever overtake into turn 1 because it's
he
pointless
waited.
to run down.
That was it. Yeah.
He waited, but his exit wasn't good enough, so he didn't get that opportunity there. It's what you said, Spanners. He had a bit of a moment through turn 1, which, to be fair, everyone, if there's a slight wind direction change at turn 1, which can happen a lot at Red Bull Ring, it can really unsettle the rear. And Piastri took full advantage of it there. But other than that, it was I know Chris is trying to dig, but it was a faultless weekend from Lando. He topped credit where it's due. He topped every single session he was involved in. He didn't compete in FP1 because Alex Dunn, he had to give it up for the rookie Alex Dunn.
P4, by the way, in FP1.
He's a proper talented driver, someone I'm familiar with from my F3 days on iRacing. I remember him as a youngster coming through thinking, who's this young hotshot beating me? Wasn't
shame he keeps getting
too bad.
Disqualified from races, though, in F2.
That is an inconvenience. Yeah.
Still leading the championship, I guess. But yeah, he jumped straight in. This is a track where Lando has always excelled at. Got his first podium here. He's always fought for positions higher than what the car has been achievable at other races, other circuits. And yeah, he should take big confidence heading into his home race at Silverstone.
So I think both McLaren drivers have come out of this looking pretty good. It really depends on what tilt you're doing. So as a temporary this season Norris fan, you can well, you've got to pick a battle, haven't you? You've got to pick. I'm not a fan of either of the 3 drivers that were in contention.
You're a flavour of the week guy.
Yeah, but I don't want to be left out. So I shouldn't be punished because my big drivers that I support are like Perez, Tsunoda and Hamilton. I shouldn't be left out just because they're languishing.
You've got a wardrobe full of every single team's merch, haven't you? Whoever has a good race that day, whoever's the talking point, you stick it on. I've seen enough of these podcasts.
He's just the flavour of the week.
Especially with the hats and the helmets in the background and whatever, I can interchange. But yeah, I wouldn't mind pick. Like last season, I found myself in the Norris Verstappen battle. I found myself like cheering on Verstappen in that battle, going like I wanted Verstappen to beat Norris. I went, oh my God, what has happened to me? But you end up picking a horse for the race, isn't it? It's just making it interesting. But yeah, this year definitely I had more backed Norris because I'd questioned why Piastri got the early contract. And because people had come at me so hard for saying he had tyre management issues as a weakness.
By the way, it's got nothing to do with the fact that our brilliant producer, Steve, is Australian and a staunch Piastri fan, is it? So I can see him typing furiously.
There is a slight cricket thing. So I am a cricket fan. So that does automatically, it doesn't matter how much I think an Aussie is brilliant, I will automatically root against an Australian because of cricket. Sorry, can't help that. So And by the way, I will say it's never ever a British bias. It is always an English bias. Don't you ever accuse me of supporting Scottish and Welsh athletes. So both
it depends.
What?
Surely it depends. No, it depends if they're successful. Don't you remember the it was
Andy
on the
Murray.
Grand Tour?
Yeah, great. Show
It
me a
was on the Grand Tour.
successful Scottish athlete, and then I can try and think about it. No, I know. Yeah,
Andy Murray, when
yeah.
he won, he was British.
Yeah.
British.
He was Scottish.
David Coulthard
Jackie
was
Stewart.
briefly British, but he became Scottish very fast.
No, it's Jackie Stewart and Jim Clark. They're British. David Coulthard is Scottish.
Anyway, yes, I do have a Ferrari onesie, absolutely. So I think both the McLaren drivers, depending on what your tilt was, you can come away with loads of positives. So to me, Norris, my favourite apparently, was doing the things that I have been begging for him to do. Stop messing up Q3, do better wheel to wheel. And he did those things and he nailed it. And I still maintain his peak performance, his best day, is better than Piastri's best day. But he's having less of his best days than Piastri is at the moment. Piastri as well, though, can point to the fact that he was in this battle. He was down in qualifying and immediately got P2, took the fight to Norris fantastically, aggressively, just full chest out going for it and was in it. And even if he doesn't have as good tyre management, he was clawing that tyre advantage, that delta back. He was 6.5 after the pits. He was trying to close down the gap. I think in stint 3 on the medium tyre again, if you look at his lap times, he was taking a lot out of that tyre very early. I think he probably made it easier for Norris to defend than it had to be, even though he had to deal with the traffic. But I think Piastri fans will come and look at that performance and go, he just went for it and he was outstanding. And I agree with both sides, to be honest, Scott.
Yeah, I think what we've got is a very unique championship battle going on in an inter-team battle as well, because I agree with you. I think overall, Norris's peak and his A game is slightly, not by much, but is slightly better than Oscar Piastri's, as we saw at Monaco, as we saw here this weekend. However, what we've got in the form of Norris is a driver that on his day is super difficult to beat.
Yeah.
But over the duration of a 24 race season, can he maintain that level? Arguably, the question is still out, no, because of the position he finds himself in now. Oscar Piastri, no slouch by any means, but he is the more consistent driver, hasn't qualified worse than fourth, arguably wasn't on the pace of his teammate this weekend, but still pushed him for the race win. It's with so many more race weekends ahead, it's very, very interesting, but I do think if I'm going to put my stock in someone for the championship, I still do have faith that he's going to wipe out those mistakes. And if he does,
that was going to be my question. I'm definitely
think
I think it's still in Norris's hands. Put it that way. He's not hoping for any favours. He can on merit overcome what he's been going through and win still, I think. I just want to answer a couple of the Patreon chat things. Heraclius says Chris Hoy. Yeah, Chris Hoy, British cyclist. Very successful, definitely British. Bruce says, I'm the same with watching almost any sporting event. I randomly pick some team or person, no idea why, because it's more fun. Do you know one of the biggest things we're hooked at in this house is we find those videos where they have marble races, where they just have like different coloured marbles going down a track, and we all instantly become so tribal. I'm like, well, I'm the yellow one, right, I'm the pink one. And then we'll get into like full-on arguments about whether the yellow marble was robbed on the marble race.
So I've never done that.
Okay.
But just like totally cannot relate at all. But I think Piastri's trajectory of where he's going, he will be superior to Norris like all the time pretty soon, I think. I think Lando, this is probably his best shot at a world championship he's probably ever going to get. I think Oscar's going to have more coming towards him in the future. But if I'm Oscar Piastri, there is one single moment in that race that I am replaying in my head again and again and again. And that is Lando's message saying, I need pace, help, please.
Oh,
I have never,
ever
heard anything like that. That is such a telling radio message, because he was having to be coached like to Nico Rosberg levels by his engineer, which is just I think it's so weird because we think of Lando as one of these like really naturally gifted drivers because the way he just rose up through the junior ranks without really trying, and what now he's having to be coached in how to be Oscar.
He whizzed into F1 on an e-scooter filled with money. I want to push back. Yeah. I guess the slight pushback on that is they were in a tyre saving phase at that time, right? And then shortly after that, when he was told, oh, you've lost time in the high speed through traffic, he was able to extend the lead back. So the lead was coming down, 6.5 to like below 3. Then after that conversation, he was able to go up to 4. Now I haven't seen the full radio transcript, but I don't think he had anyone on the radio saying, okay, you need to take more curb here. You need to take a different line through here. It wasn't that. It was the time loss that you've had is because of this reason. So basically, don't worry about it. Just do what you're doing. Then when he saw the time come down to a certain amount, he was like, okay, time to use a bit of the pace I've got. It didn't sound good, Chris. It doesn't sound good to say, I have no pace, help. But I wonder if we're missing a little context.
It's the way he said it. Definitely. Because people are always asking for feedback, right? It's the use of the language. It sounded almost panicky.
Yeah, I think, Spanish, your point is key there. Context. We don't know. He might have gone a good lap or so without any radio message from his engineer, and he lost a whole. I remember watching the intervals. He lost a whole chunk of time when he got caught behind Colapinto, who went into the pit lane. Now, turn 9, that second to last corner, the entry to the pit lane is on the racing line, so they have to take so much speed off that it was the worst place for him to lose time. And Oscar was pushing as well, and he made up like a whole second. So all of a sudden, he's looking in his rearview mirrors in the space of 2 laps, a lap and a half. He's gone from having a gap of 5 seconds to it being 3, 2.5. And he's thinking, oh my God, what's happening? I'm panicking. But yeah, context is the key issue because, yeah, we need that. But it didn't sound good, did it?
Well, if the title fight wasn't on before, it definitely is now. We're in for a treat, I think, for the rest of 2025. And the reason I think that it's all about McLaren, who, by the way, seem to be doing things in a very non-toxic way and seem to have a genuinely caring work environment where they're working together for a common goal, even if that common goal is a fair competition between the two drivers and Stella. I'm telling you what, like Uncle Andrea, doesn't he seem like just the best uncle in the world? And I genuinely believe now, when they're saying they're trying to create this great environment at McLaren, I believe that they're trying to do it, and I believe they're succeeding in doing it. I will just say there was about 2 centimetres between Piastri's front wing and Lando Norris's car that would have changed the narrative of this race substantially. But the reason those two are now the clear contenders is because Piastri is 61 points clear of Max Verstappen. Super Max taken out on lap 1. And there was something of an exodus, I'm told, at the Austrian Grand Prix. But I looked in the stands and more Verstappen fans stayed to watch the end of the race than I would have expected. Incredibly disappointing to have the home hero taken out in lap 1, especially when it's in such a random way. But Scott, you'll know this. When you get wiped out on lap 1 and you're kind of in the mid-pack, it's different than if you get taken out from the lead. Because in the mid-pack, it's kind of like, yep. That's the kind of thing that happens from 7th.
Yeah, it's always the risk, but he was a passenger. I think personally, Kimi Antonelli, we know it was a rookie mistake, but I think he'd been watching maybe too much F3 and F2 racing over the weekend, because I saw that exact crash happen about 3 or 4 times over the duration of this weekend in the junior formulas. And I don't think Kimi's got any excuses, to be honest. But yeah, what that has firmly done, I think, is removed an already struggling Max Verstappen in that Red Bull car. We know that he's doing his best. He could have qualified higher if it wasn't for Gasly's spin, bringing out the yellow flag in Q3. So bit bad luck there, but then it meant that he received even more bad luck with the incident. But he's now 61 points behind Piastri. That's more than 2 race wins behind in a already struggling Red Bull. So yeah, championship over for Max Verstappen.
Obviously, for Antonelli, like, it had to happen eventually for him to do something quite silly And to be honest, it's amazing that he's gotten this far into the season without doing something that clumsy. So you would say, yeah, Max was pretty chill after that incident, right? Is he going to go over to an 18-year-old rookie and, pound him on the helmet, slap him about the chops a little bit and be really angry?
Chris, that is his teammate for next season. Okay, he can't.
Right. Okay, right. I love this. Okay, there are so many. That's my sincere answer. I have, I put on a tinfoil hat earlier and blocked out all of the critical thoughts, and came up with a couple of good ones. Like, one is he's probably relieved that he didn't have to drive what sounded like a pretty awful race car on a boiling hot day to finish at best maybe 5th or 6th, because we know if he's not winning, he's not that interested in it. The second one is he wanted to watch the last hour of the Spa 24 Hours, which his team won. His team won in class today.
Oh, well done.
So well done to them. That was astonishing. And there's like 2 sim racing converts in that car as well. So brilliant.
Oh, that is interesting, actually, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the third one is that the result shall release him from his Red Bull contract.
I love it.
I don't think that's necessarily true,
At least
to be honest.
one of these things has got to be true. No, I buy it. Right, so...
One of them's got to be true.
If we just throw enough crap...
Some of it will stick.
Scott.
The other one is that he doesn't have to worry about picking up a penalty point for a potential ridiculous reason and missing Silverstone, because he's had some points wiped from his license now. But I don't know if you guys noticed, he did take an awfully long look at that Mercedes car to see which driver was in it. Because you can be guaranteed if it was George Russell, it was a turquoise helmet, maybe his initial reaction might have been a little bit stronger.
Sky
100%.
Sports initially said it was Russell, and I was like giddy. Like, I don't do things for clickbait, but if clicks come my way,
Content.
if there's open goals for me to tweet about, then yeah, it would have been wonderful. And then so I was a bit disappointed when it was Antonelli. I do believe the clause thing, that there's a clause that lets him get out of stuff. I believe that he wants to get out of Red Bull. Perez has been doing a load of interviews lately talking about how the team has basically collapsed and there's no one there and nothing was his fault, of course. And then the George Russell interviews where he's gone, you know how I've been saying all year that I'm not worried at all about my contract talks at Mercedes and it's all perfectly normal. Well, now it definitely is because they're speaking to Verstappen, but I'll be okay because another team will probably hire me. I think it all now starts to make sense.
So 2 things on that. One, there is 100% a clause in his contract that allows him to, a performance clause that allows him to leave early. There is some debate about the details of it regarding the position he has to be in the championship and at what point in the championship as well. But secondly, I would argue that he's more likely to end up at Aston Martin in an Adrian Newey designed car with a Honda power unit for next year than he is to end up at Mercedes. Not to get too derailed.
No, but I definitely believe that Toto Wolff is speaking to Max Verstappen. I know their first choice is Joshua Pearce, so that is definitely the first driver that they're looking at. Oh, sorry? Someone hasn't seen the F1 movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. No, sorry. That's the other one.
Yes, spoiler.
That's the one who isn't famous.
The secondary role. Sorry, Scott, go on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Max just isn't too fussed about this season now. He's got no chances. He's a winner. He wants to focus on race wins. He'll be no doubt thinking of the Spa 24 Hours that his team won and the virtual one that is upcoming in a couple of weeks' time in between F1. But that Red Bull car is just, it's a dog, isn't it?
It's a
Yuki
dog.
Tsunoda is just, what a poor weekend it was from Yuki as well. And he's making silly mistakes by trying to overdrive that car. And then on the flip side, you look at Lawson, who finished qualified. I know Max caught up in Q3, but if you look at the optics, he's qualified ahead of Max. He's qualified in Q3 ahead of Yuki, and it's Red Bull. Yeah, they're in a sticky situation at the moment.
You know, I'm going to defend Yuki slightly, just a little. All right, just a little. He was 0.2 tenths or something. He was 2 tenths off Verstappen in qualifying when he got eliminated. It's a tight field. they were both complaining about the same things. Basically, the car wasn't turning in, it wasn't biting. Verstappen was complaining about slightly more things, but Tsunoda's thing was, I just can't get any bite on that car. Looking at the race pace, actually, from Tsunoda, it wasn't awful, but he was obviously bogged down. He was having battles and then ended up getting blamed for that incident into turn 4, which I don't agree with.
Hang on, what?
I don't agree with it.
Whose fault is it?
Whose fault is it? I've been super consistent on this type of incident at turn 4. I don't think it was Hamilton's fault when he hit Albon. I don't think it was Russell's fault when he hit Perez. And I don't think this was Tsunoda's fault when he hit Colapinto. I think if you tighten that exit and leave tons of room to your left-hand side as the outside car, you're inviting a hit. And in many ways, it's self-policing because he ended up spinning around. But he did have room to his left to survive.
100%.
I can't believe. Right, it seems I'm on my own here. Go on, Chris.
No, Colapinto's got all that space to his left-hand side. Doesn't even think about using the exit curb. And you're right, Matt. It was Albon's fault when it happened to him in 2020 or whatever it was. Even though Hamilton was the one who ended up getting the penalty.
Yeah, and Russell got the penalty against Perez as well. Nearly identical situations.
I mean, overall, really dire weekend for Red Bull in front of, it's their own circuit that they own. Home race in front of the co-owners.
Yeah, I know, but I think if you don't let Scott get in on his opinion on the incident, he's going to burst.
He's going to be angry.
Yeah, I'm getting redder and redder as we've had to turn our fans off here in a very hot UK. It's all your fault, Spanners. I don't really know what you guys are complaining about. Yuki Tsunoda was way behind him.
Yeah, that's what the steward said.
Colapinto also. How often have we said there's never an entitlement to hit an apex? There's no entitlement to use all of the racetrack either. So Colapinto was sufficiently ahead there, and I think it's for Yuki to scrub off a bit more speed to try and keep it tighter so that ultimately he doesn't lock wheels with Colapinto, who is always ahead.
I got some sympathy with what you're saying, but also as they came down to turn 4, you could tell way before the corner that they're crashing. Like they're definitely making contact here.
They were two drivers who were having horrendous weekends. Colapinto's under pressure. Okay. Yuki's already mad, and it was going to happen. And then maybe that's what led to Colapinto completely being oblivious to Piastri coming alongside him.
If you're a performance engineer or you're like the driver trainer, whatever, before the race, you're going to go, right, guys, if you find yourself the outside car into turn 4, it would be a really good idea just to use the whole of the exit curb, because there's such a high chance of you getting punched. Because there's so many examples now of cars getting turned around or knocked off at turn 4 for squeezing on the exit.
It's like, if I'm going to make you take a much tighter line into this corner than normal, maybe I should expect you to understeer a little bit on the exit and perhaps leave a little bit more room. It's called taking margin, really.
Yeah, and Scott, I wanted to have a non-race review bigger chat about this, but I was thinking there should be some kind of guideline where if you squeeze on the entry, you should definitely leave room on the exit, or like you can only squeeze on the exit if you've been all the way wide on entry, because it's just a recipe for disaster if you try and squeeze on both entry and exit.
There has I agree to an extent. Yeah, there has to be a bit of give and take. Like it's just like kind of the laws of physics at the end of the day. A driver isn't always going to be able to scrub off all the speed and keep it tight to the white line on the inside. It's just not feasible because of the momentum they're carrying, because of the speeds that they're traveling. But I still just think Colapinto in that incident was sufficiently ahead. I hate what was beautiful about this race weekend is that because of the nature of the corners, there was none of this kind of ahead at the apex ridiculousness that is unfortunately a part of F1. And even in that incident, I don't think that necessarily would have been utilised just because of how far he was ahead.
It was in the steward's report. They did specifically mention the not far enough ahead.
We don't care about the stewards. They never did.
I agree.
Anyway.
Go on, Chris.
So on the opposite end of this scale, Isaac Hadjar had a fantastic move into the turn 3 hairpin on, I think, one of the Aston Martins.
Turn 3 hairpin? Right?
Yeah, turn 3.
Is that a hairpin?
It's nearly a hairpin. It's incredibly tight.
It's a 90 degree.
Yeah, 90 degrees.
It's more than 90 degrees. It's like a second gear corner.
GP.
Turning into a maths class now
turn
rather than
3.
a podcast.
Is it an acute angle or a obtuse angle?
I don't remember.
Anyway, carry on. I'm looking at the track map now. Track.
Anyway.
Oh my God, shut up. It's like maybe 100 degrees.
It's closer to a hairpin than it is to a 90-degree corner.
Let's get our protractors out, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to. Go anyway, Chris.
Right. Anyway, he did a really great move on, I think, one of the Aston Martins, right? He came from about 7 miles back and lunged on the inside. And he was so tight. He was on the extreme right-hand side of the track. And I was watching that and thinking, oh, God, here he goes. He's going to bang into the side of him. The guy's going to run off. And then there's going to be an argument about whether he's ahead of the Apex or not, blah, 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 blah. But not only did he, like, on the extreme inside of the corner, not only did he make the corner, he did not make contact with the other car. They successfully went side by side through that corner. And he came out at the end of the straight ahead. It can be done.
It's less fun, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Antonelli, we didn't say whose fault it was, did we? We didn't get to the...
it was Sainz's fault.
So the thing with the Antonelli one is I actually think that was terrible for Antonelli's move. Yeah, it was so bad for the pinnacle of motorsport.
I listened to some of the post shows from the broadcasters, and they were defending him. Oh. And I'm just thinking, they're going, oh, well, they're reviewing it. Oh, you can see that there's this Constantina effect and that the drivers are maybe braking a little bit earlier because of those.
A completely normal Constantina effect that happens all the time.
A normal Constantina effect at a normal braking point for turn one. I looked at it and I'm thinking, okay, are they braking at maybe the 150? No, they're braking Lawson ahead of him, who is so lucky. I mean, he had an unbelievable race today, an unbelievable weekend. He nearly got taken out by Antonelli. I mean, it's on one hand, it's good avoidance, but at the same time, it's just a big mistake for him. Just having a small lapse in concentration at those speeds is, really critical, isn't it? Unfortunately, Max was on the receiving end, but it was. Kimi's had a lot of praise this year, and he needs criticism where it's due.
The visor cam footage of the incident was straight out of the F1 movie trailer, wasn't it? Like, when he's sliding around all over the place. It's almost a carbon copy of that footage. It's crazy. But look, it had to happen eventually, didn't it? For him to do something a bit silly in his rookie season.
The silliness was just being so far up the gearboxes and giving himself no margin whatsoever. It looks like there came a point where basically, the braking all started. He realised he'd done something wrong and he could have just piled into the back. But instead, you go, oh, let's pull out. Let's turn it. Let's see if we can salvage something. And then as soon as you get that lock, you're helpless and the steering starts not working. You've got no traction. You can't do anything. And it's a horrible feeling even in a kart or on the sim where you kind of just know you're sailing into the pack and you just try and do anything to slow it down. But in the end, he ruined Lawson's start and he took out Verstappen.
He's very fortunate now I think about it. He's very fortunate there wasn't a car alongside him, because that crash could have been so much worse than just Antonelli and Verstappen out of that race. That could have been 10-pin bowling situation. And Lawson,
Hungary.
Exactly. Yeah, it comes to mind. I mean, Lawson was fortunate that he only lost 3 positions, recovered really well. Bortoletto also lost a few positions there because he had to take avoiding action around the outside. So there were a few drivers there who lost good positions at the start of that race because of that incident.
Chris, grid penalty or no?
Yeah, 3
I
place
think
grid
so.
penalty.
Yeah.
Just what I was going to say. I believe it's 3-place grid penalty.
And 2 penalty points as well, which people will be going back to Lando, of course, in Canada. Where's the consistency?
What happened? Oh, what? How many? Did he not get any penalty points for Canada?
He didn't get any penalty points, even though he was deemed for causing a collision.
But you don't necessarily get penalty points just for causing a collision, do you?
According to the new guidelines that the FIA...
Yeah, well, shut up, because the new guidelines that were published say that Verstappen have been disqualified for this race already, because it said his antics in Spain should have been a 3 penalty point incident. If you did it deliberately, it's 3 penalty points, and everyone knows he did it deliberately.
Well, it's Steward's discretion, isn't it? Which is ridiculous, really. But anyway, we're going back to the past.
we know why it was 2 points this week. It's because they published the thing, and so they got nowhere to hide now. Which is like, I know people wanted the FIA to be more transparent about things, but they really backed themselves in a corner by publishing this document, haven't they?
There is one line there, and just before we continue on, there's one line that really rolled me up, is that they've always said we don't punish the outcome. We punish, like, they want to say we punish the intent. There is a line there that specifically says about the sporting outcome. Like, they judge an incident based on whether or not another driver ends up crashing out as a result and cannot continue. That is utterly ridiculous. I've always said this. You compare it to football. You go in for a two-footed challenge with your studs up. Doesn't matter if you injure the player or not and he jumps out of the way and is absolutely fine. You get sent off. You get a red card. It should be the same in motorsport. So just something that rolled me up with the posting of the guidelines there this week. But at least they're public for us. Whether they'll be followed, though, that's
well, there's no pleasing us, though, is there? It's like, there should be specific rules for where you need to be in the corner. No, not like that. They're awful. They should tell us all the guidelines. Oh, my God, look at those guidelines.
It's not good enough. Not good enough.
No, it's not good enough. Right, where should we go? Let's go to Ferrari and Mercedes. Let's start with Mercedes, because I think it's the quicker one. George Russell's such a caring guy, though, isn't he? He's just thinking about his mechanics all the time, pre-race. Guys, make sure the mechanics get water. It's really hot out there. Yeah, thanks. Honestly, they were going to go without water all weekend. It had not occurred to a single one of them that we should drink water that we're 90% composed of and need to live.
That's the type of driver you want in Stake F1 to be Audi, isn't it? I mean,
that's team leader. That's team leader behaviour. That is
team leader material. I will look after our engineers, guys. I'm not just all about me. Hire me.
George, where's the camera, Russell? I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but that was 100% for the cameras.
I didn't hear Felipe Drugovich talking about any of this. Oh, wait, you said Audi. Oh,
what have you done?
Cadillac, sorry.
Oh, you reckon it's Drogovich's Cadillac?
I was trying to be clever, and then I realized you didn't say the team I thought you said.
No, it was a good attempt, though. I'm glad that you feel free to fail. You know, freedom to fail. That's what this is all about. Just kind of like an improv, kind of free space. That's good. Let's just get the camera lingering on Chris just for a moment, just to capture this moment. That's fine. So obviously Antonelli's had his...
Can you please cut it out in the edit?
Nope. So Antonelli's had his disaster. Obviously the team struggled, I think, in the heat. It very much seems to be a trait of the Mercedes. It's a big flaw, really. I don't really understand why Mercedes can only drive when it's not hot. Most of the calendar is hot. Fix that.
What's interesting is that it's not the track temperatures that are the issue. He said it was to do with the tyres. But we saw 50-degree track temps in Canada and they excelled brilliantly. But the air temperature was much cooler than what we saw.
Yeah. No, I think it's down to air. I don't think it's a tyres thing. So this is my pet theory is it's the engine cooling. And it's basically whether you open the car up to cool the car properly or whether you close the car up and favour performance.
Well, what's really interesting, you've touched on the Mercedes power units already. Williams, I still haven't seen an explanation as to why Albon retired. We know why.
4 races in a row. Has he retired 4 races in a row now, Albon?
At least 2.
I think it's the last 4 races he's retired.
Spain, he did retire, didn't he? So it's at least 3.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a statistic.
Goodness, because he literally pitted and then he was back in the pit straight away. And all I heard from the pit lane reporter was it's a temperature issue. So Williams power unit. There we go.
So
Carlos Sainz's car barely started, which is why we had the aborted start, and then his rear brakes decided to set themselves alight. So that's clearly something to do with...
That was a bold tactic, and we're yet to see if that will pay off. Chris?
Official word from Williams is just, Alex had an issue that we need to investigate.
Did they say the same with? Did they say the same with Sainz? Yeah, they had an issue which we need to investigate. Initial findings are fire, but we'll let you know more as that comes out. And obviously, and that start was weird as well. He's like, I can't pull away. And we've just seen the F1 movie where Sonny Hayes does that deliberately.
Spoilers.
Oh, come on! It's in the first. It's in the first 30 minutes. It's been out for a week.
Unbelievable Spanish. It's no consideration for your panelists.
It's a montage side note. It's not a major plot point. And I guarantee you this, I could tell you every single detail of the F1 movie and it would not change whether you hated it or enjoyed it. It's not an M. Night Shyamalan fit. There's no like big twist. You know, he wasn't in the lunatic asylum all along. You know, so it's fine. So, the aliens can't be defeated by water. But so they did this thing where he failed to get off the start, but it was on purpose. So his tyres were warm by the time he got to the start. So obviously a lot of people mentioning that, but then he got going, and I didn't understand this because the marshals pushed him, and I go, oh, is that allowed now? I didn't know whether that was allowed, and surely someone could have made a call to kind of go, well, he's up and running now. Let's just get him around. You know, he can start whenever he wants. But it did seem like an unnecessary delay.
Yeah, it did seem to be a little bit, didn't it? Because he got going pretty sharpish. But I had the same question as well. I was like, oh, can he actually start this race because he's received outside assistance? But I guess technically the race hasn't started because it's a formation lap. But yeah, did the right thing to come into the pit lane, and the race could have started there. But I guess because the engineers still hadn't even got all the way into the pit lane, they just went, no, we're going to abort this start.
No, he can start because he was going to go through the pit lane. He was going to start from the pit lane rather than actually on the grid. So
it was more so the aborted start of it. I think he could start because it started the pit lane. Sorry,
starting from the pit lane. And then obviously the issue with the whole aborted start thing is because he was sat there for so long, the mechanics can't cross the track. So all the mechanics on the left-hand side of the track that can only go once all the cars have departed. So I know it's one of those really annoying things. Like, really, is there not a better way for us to do this? But that's how it is.
I'm going to do some more F1 movie.
Very loud motorcycle outside.
I'm going to do some more F1 movie spoilers. There's a relationship that is initially hostile that ends up warming throughout the movie. When things are going well in the middle of the movie, there is some kind of event that looks like it would derail everything, but they somehow overcome it. And every sports movie? That. So there we go. Let's move on to Ferrari, who were on fire in a very different way. So some really positive things coming out of them. I mean, they could have, I think both drivers had the potential to be in P2. So they could have had a 2 and a 3, but for a little bit of a loss of time from Hamilton on his final lap. But they're clearly the second best car at the moment, Scott.
Are they the second best car? I think it depends on the
track. Yeah.
Well, today they were, but it depends what track they go to. I mean, they were still 20 seconds behind the McLarens at the end of the race. And yeah, there was a non-battle, I guess, for P3, which they failed to report to Lewis Hamilton. There was one moment in this race when we think we're getting over radio messages. There was one moment for the last pit stop where Charles Leclerc had already pitted. And I think it's probably quite easy to understand that Ferrari didn't want to swap the cars. Lewis was saying, my tyres are fine. My tyres are really good. Are my lap times dropping off or whatever? I want to stay out. And they just went box. And he was like, well, but yeah, what's going on? He wanted context to the situation. Everyone outside the car could see it, and they just kept saying box. And it was quite painful to listen to. They gave him no context whatsoever, rather than just saying, Charles has pitted, or just whatever, give the guy something. And he eventually adhered to it and came in. But yeah, way off the pace, a non-existent day for him in the overall grander scheme of things.
The thing is, Ferrari are here, but they're not competing this year. Let's be honest.
They're still in it.
They're not. They're just not. They are turning up every week, putting a smile on, saying hi to the sponsors, and just waiting for 2026. That is
or Monza.
All they care about. Yeah, and Monza. Obviously.
Magic package arrives at Monza, as it always
great low downforce package at Monza, yeah. No, they're just waiting for 26. They don't care about this year. But that being said, they should care about, how they go about things. They should be using this time to learn, hey, when we are winning races next year, obviously, how are we going to go about communicating with the drivers? How are we going to go about doing these strategy things? So, yeah, the whole thing of just like, no, we're just ticking off all the boxes to finish off this race. They shouldn't necessarily be doing that.
Okay, but podium from Leclerc, and frustrating for him to be told, right, you have to lift and coast every lap, every corner. So to me, that suggests they picked a configuration around qualifying And then when it came to the race, they were having to do a lot of lift and coast. So presumably that's to save on engine temps.
Yes, but they found themselves in that position where the car was just they were in no man's land. They were 30 seconds ahead of George Russell, and then they even more so by the end of the race, and yet they were never going to compete with the McLarens. So it's let's just save the engine. Well, let's
it could be that
any sort of mechanical issue. If there's a safety car, we can maybe take advantage of it. But I bet a number of drivers and teams have utilised that strategy in the past.
So when they had no threat behind and no chance of catching ahead, I think basically the team went, "Yup, job done. We've got a podium. Brilliant. Big points for P4. Let's wrap it up." And I think most of the team was probably at the espresso machine already, ready to wrap up. And then Hamilton is there still in that race going, I've got a few ways that I can make up time. Yeah, but the only person you could possibly overtake is your teammate. And we're perfectly happy with how things are at the moment. So he's like, I can stay out. I don't think the one stop was on his mind, but I think he's thinking I can stay out without losing anything. And then if there's a safety car, I'm out on fresh tyres and I can overtake Leclerc. Again, we don't really want that. We're perfectly happy with this P3, P4. And so I guess they were saying your optimal lap time is from pitting now. It's like, yeah, okay, I get that. But also being a position higher is better than any optimal lap time.
Yeah, it just comes back down to the context. It sounds like from the radio messages we heard, there was none of that. So you're leaving the guy who wants to push, a racing driver who wants to improve, he's feeling the car is good underneath him, and you're telling him to come into the pits and pit back out behind his teammate who's already 7 seconds up the road anyway. So it was just, Ferrari, just be a bit more transparent with your drivers. Like, they're out there, you've clearly got more information, relay that to them. Other teams do, because they have a much bigger picture of the whole scenario. Just tell them, no, we're happy with where we're at, this is the race we're in. Simple as. Lewis would have accepted it.
I don't know. And then, because we're so hard to please, I think if they'd come over the radio and said, Lewis, we don't want you to fight Leclerc, so we're just going to bring you in and bring it home, we might be sat here going, well, they can't just tell him to give up. So I don't know. It's easy to say from here, of course, but yeah, basically Hamilton was the only person still pushing for position. And maybe they didn't want to tell him over the radio, like, you can't fight Charles. But from a positives, as a Hamilton fan, this is the most comfortable he's looked since the Chinese Grand Prix, the sprint race, where they looked, but ultimately then got disqualified. But more importantly than that, other than pace alone, he was attacking everyone when he was racing. He seemed confident on the brakes. He was making late moves. He was aggressive past cars that had not pitted yet, so like Lawson and Alonso. And you kind of go, oh, he looks really comfortable. And in qualifying, there was the peak potential to be up where Leclerc is. And so that hasn't been the case so far. I think we have always said for changes of team, half a season to get comfortable. And he made some interesting comments saying, look, it took Carlos Sainz 3 seasons to adapt to Leclerc's driving style, and I don't want to do that. It doesn't mean I don't want to do that in that I don't want to take too long to do that, or he's got in his mind that when we get to 2026, it's going to change. So I'm starting to get a handle on what Leclerc wants and what Hamilton wants. So I get the feeling that Leclerc is a bit more like Verstappen in driving style. He wants to be able to throw the back end out or as close to rally style as a Formula One car gets. Hamilton, even though he's got this kind of reputation for throwing it around and being very aggressive, he wants a very planted rear so that when he gets deep into the corner, he can do a lot of stuff with the front end, knowing that the back end isn't going to go out. And so he said, I can't drive like Leclerc drives, which is what the car wants, without tyre deg. So if he tries to drive like a very loose rear end like Leclerc, he gets tyre deg. Fascinating. And it really shows the importance of being the number one driver.
Yeah, it is. Like, at the end of the day, he's coming into that team where Leclerc's been there for 7 years now, and Lewis we've spoken about it kind of to the end of the world, but this is a set of regs that Lewis has never got off to a good start with Mercedes, and I think that's just carried on that lack of confidence throughout, and with these being the heaviest, largest cars in F1 history, it just doesn't suit someone who started their career in F1 with light, nimble cars. 26 may be a lot better for him, but he has started to get closer to Leclerc's qualifying times, and he was disappointed he didn't get third He said that supposedly there was a brake issue that they picked up, which cost him a 10th. I don't know how effective it was, but he said there was a so-called issue, and he should have been starting at least ahead of Piastri. But it's still, in comparison to the competition, not where they want to be, but they have just got back up to second in the championship. So that's good for them, I guess.
Two brief things I want to cover before the awards. So start thinking about your awards crew. One I'm going to go to in a bit to Chris to talk about Bortoleto. But I want to give a shout out to Lawson, who's a driver who has had if he wanted to win over Spanners, which I'm sure is very high on his priority list, then don't go up against Yuki, because Yuki's my guy. And also don't replace Perez, because I'm a massive Perez fan as well. So obviously how I think about Lawson is tainted by that. But big body blow, having that dream of going to Red Bull, ripped apart in a few races over there, and then coming back to AlphaTauri, VCarb, and not being the number one driver there. You need to drop back and start beating Hadjar, but Hadjar has been all over him. So he was bouncing and bubbling at the end of this race in all the interviews, completely changed demeanor. You can see a weight has been lifted off his shoulders because he's had exactly the weekend that he needs.
He had a very heartfelt interview with Sky afterwards, but it was kind of really eye-opening. And they asked him the normal questions of course, beating the second Red Bull car. And they asked him a very tough question about the second Red Bull car as well, and trying to get a bit intimate into it. And he said, look, it's been very difficult because you work your whole life to get to the top of F1, to get into F1. And then when you get to the top of F1, which is everyone's dream, to then have that taken away, it was very difficult. And he said something that he's worked, him and the team, he credited the people off the track. So obviously there's been a lot of work. There was concerns about his mental well-being, of course, from his time in Red Bull, and he credited people off the track. He didn't specify, but that was kind of really eye-opening, I think, into what he's had to go to. And this is his best performance in F1 ever, by the way. So it's the confidence booster he needs to kick on for the rest of the season. It's still a long season ahead.
Yep, plenty of time to make a name for yourself. Bortoleto, Chris, how good is Bortoleto? Rejected by Red Bull and just looked incredible this weekend.
Yeah, he certainly did. And I love the fact that he's finding his feet. I mean, he had the measure of Hülkenberg today, didn't he? The whole weekend, really. And don't get me wrong, Hülkenberg had a really great drive as well to get up the order as well and be right there with Gabby. But his performance in qualifying, fantastic. Car's been working really well. Really random performance from the team in general. Like we remember it was less than 2 years ago.
They couldn't
less
do a
than
pit
2 years ago. They were dead last. It would take 2 minutes to do a stop. So this is really great. This is like a really good feel good result for Formula One, I think. And I think everyone's on Gabby's side because he definitely has the potential. And I think when the rookies come in, some of them are more hyped up than others. Some of them you don't really care about, but a lot of them have been having really, really good performances. Gabby's one of them.
Yeah, just touching on Stake F1's pit stops, Chris. They're doing all of a sudden 2-second pit stops. I don't know what they're feeding their pit crew, but that is a massive change around, and clearly the morale in the team, that the mid-season, I say mid-season, we're in mid-season now, but the update they brought a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the Spanish Grand Prix, where they brought that to Hülkenberg's car, that's where he finished 5th. Since then, and with this season being quite peculiar of other teams kind of pausing their development for this year because of focus on 26, maybe Williams there, they're taking full advantage of that, and they're making their way up the constructors' standings, and both their drivers are. I mean, that's the third race in a row. Hülkenberg started dead last and finished in the points. I mean, oh my God, double points finish for Stake F1. Who would have thought we'd be saying that this year?
It's that Qatar investment fund, baby.
Wait, are you saying the secret ingredient is somehow money?
Money?
What? Maybe we should try that. If only Mr. Apex had money, and we do, because of our patrons. We are only here being able to do this because of our patrons. Come and join us in our Patreon Discord, get an ad-free feed as well, and some Patreon-only exclusive content, and be the first to know about events like our Silverstone meetup in Milton Keynes on July 5th. Email me, spanners@missedapex.net. I spoke to the venue yesterday, and we can move a couple of things back. We can push a couple of their other things back and get a few more people in if you want to get in touch. And there's still karting spots available. All the links in the show notes below. So I think it is now time to go to our awards. The Austrian Grand Prix never ever disappoints and never ever will. It's got an extension until 2067. Chris, it's going to be the greatest Grand Prix track going forward for 100 years, I've heard. 100 years of the Austrian Grand Prix. And when that's finished, it'll be the Styrian Grand Prix and then just racing through hills and mountains forever. 14 DRS zones. That's what they're going to have going forward.
I love it. It's brilliant. I absolutely love the Austrian Grand Prix. I can't wait to go to the Red Bull Ring myself in September again for the third time with the GT Open because it's always fun.
You're a TV commentator now because that's what you do. And where can we look? You must have a page where you're like, hey, I'm Chris. Here's where I show off about all the cool commentary stuff I do.
Yeah, so Instagram and TikTok, probably the best places to find me at Chris on Racing. So there you'll find me talking about the stuff I do with GT Open, but different championships as well. But the new thing for me this year is joining TNT Sports.
Which used to be BT Sports, correct?
Which also used to be Eurosport as well, because they sort of absolved that for this year as well. So if you used to have Eurosport, it's now TNT Sports, which, used to be BT. And now it's owned by WBD. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But just bag your TNT Sports subscription and tune in to British Superbike coverage. I've done the first 3 rounds. I'm doing 2 more of those with TNT. But obviously the big one was doing Le Mans, which was not what I had on my list of things that I was doing at the start of the year.
Chris, no, that's going to be a gateway. But we will do a chat with you. I want a little segment with you about what it was like covering Le Mans as a big grown-up commentator. And honestly, the next time there's a gap in the junior series for F2, F3, they would be mad not to bring you on board. But I will ask you...
Oh, no.
Who
missed the Apex.
No, that doesn't work. Who missed the Apex for you, Chris?
There's so many to choose from, isn't there?
You can have 2. Let's see if you can steal Scott's. You've got 2 chances to steal Scott's.
I don't think Scott would have done. I think Lando literally missed the Apex at turn 6 many times.
And was told not to. That was interesting,
He was told he had to hit the Apex at turn 6.
To mess with Piastri. That was the interesting thing. Make sure you hit the Apex at turn 6 to take away aero from Piastri.
Exactly. I think his please help radio message kind of missed the Apex a little bit.
I'll go with that. The please help. There we go. Go and follow Chris Stevens by clicking all the things and searching for Chris Stevens, quite attractive commentator. I think that comes up if you put that in chat GTP. Speaking of handsome, look at the face card on this fella. Scott Stuffey Tuffy. I've been telling everyone for years you're going to be the biggest F1 YouTuber in the world, and I think you're on the way to doing that. If you want to watch a live watch along with alternative commentary, don't go anywhere else. This man, Scott Stuffey Tuffy, the YouTube is going fantastic, and you will continue doing that for 100 years.
That's the plan. That's the retirement plan. So yes, the dream is, as always, I think for most people, to do something you enjoy, and I absolutely love doing them. So yeah, we're well on the road to that becoming a reality.
Partner more supportive since it started making some money?
Of course.
Yeah.
They always are.
Yeah, can relate. Scott, the links to Scott's live watch along will be in the show notes below. Honestly, just jump in, even for the pre-race stuff for the British Grand Prix. I think you'll find yourself getting hooked and maybe staying with Scott over your traditional broadcast. But Scott, who missed the Apex for you?
Who missed the Apex for me? It is Lance Stroll for 2 reasons. The first one is him extending his unwanted record. I'm now thinking it's a wanted record. He wants to be remembered he wants to go down in history for something. Is his Q1 exit record that he's got. He keeps extending it every weekend. I think ever since he broke it, he hasn't made it out of Q1. And which, funny enough, he actually looked pretty decent in practice. I thought, okay, he's going to be maybe flirting with Q3 here this weekend. No, went straight out in Q1. And the second one is, I suppose it can be kind of lumped in with lap traffic. Lance Stroll in particular is one driver. He is so. We've already spoken about his lack of spatial awareness when it comes to racing. It also comes to lapped cars as well. He always holds up the leaders when they're coming through. I've never seen someone consistently do it, but we also saw Gasly do it today. And then we saw some of the elder statesmen, or say the more experienced drivers, get out of the way very quickly and use the leaders to their advantage. It was just, blue flags, guys, get out of the way.
I have to add, you jogged a memory here. Colapinto as well.
Oh, yeah.
Putting Piastri on the grass.
Yeah.
He's 5 races in. I've not seen anything from him.
No, where's the buzz? Where was last season's buzz?
Silverstone, he has been announced. He's got
race by race.
Yeah.
Race by race until Perez can be bothered to come back. I honestly think that Perez has got the money lined up, but he wants his summer holiday. And, that's...
I think he signed that caddy deal, to be honest with you. That's why he's not going Alpine.
I think that's a poor choice on both sides. I think that's a wrong choice. I think you stick Drago in that car.
I think it's Alpine. I think it's Alpine because that's his quickest way to support the Mexican Grand Prix this year. I think the Mexican Grand Prix will be throwing money at that.
Clip this moment.
Yep. I think that's a no-brainer. If I ran the Mexican Grand Prix, I'd be going, I guess we have to run the Grand Prix, even though Perez isn't running. Is there anything we could do about Perez? And the thing is, his position won't be any different in the Alpine than it was in the Red Bull.
And I guess also, we've already touched on money being an important factor.
Money?
If you do remove Colapinto, who can replace that money? Well, Sergio Perez.
To me, all the ducks are in the row. I'm so convinced Perez will be in for the Mexican Grand Prix.
Just a fun little stat right now as well. This is how unbelievable this season has been from a point scoring position. Every single driver has scored a point now, except for 2. And they have both driven the same car. Colapinto and Jack Doohan. It's the only car that hasn't scored a single point this season.
Okay, well, no one's picked Antonelli, which is surprising. I thought that was the worst thing about the race. That was the worst single moment. Verstappen was very, very generous and kind and said, look, we've all had those moments. Everyone's done them. Yeah, you have, Max. But it is a mistake. I'm sure every driver going through the ladder from karting has had that moment where they go, oh, no, I've left it too late. There's a pile of cars in front of you. You hit the brakes. Everything goes light because you've locked it. And you just go, oh, I'm about to... And you just hope and pray, like, maybe there'll be a gap. And there hardly ever is. When it's lap 1, you're always just careening into a pile of cars. Who else was I going to give it to? I think Colapinto might have been my one as well. Williams in general, because they can't seem to string anything together. A really weird one. Sainz said he put the new brakes on for qualifying, and it started pulling to one side. And then I guess they didn't do a pit lane start because they could have broken part firme. Presumably they can change like for like. So I presume they did change the brakes, but the brakes was clearly the issue on the starting grid as well. And then all the way around the formation lap, they then caught fire. Lots to pick from this weekend for the Missed Apex Award. But we do get to end on a positive. Oh, I say, follow me. Follow me on Instagram. Spanner's ready. I've reduced the quality of the posts, but I've increased the quantity of the posts. So it might be worth follling me on there.
That's genuinely how you get the algorithm these days.
Yep, that's what I'm going for.
Who doesn't want more spanners?
And same on the Missed Apex account on TikTok. So it's Missed Apex F1, although I might change that to spanners in a massive ego drive because I'm the only one who posts on it. Also on Blue Sky and TikTok. But I'm going to ask my panel now who hit the Apex. I'm going first because I don't want anyone to steal this. My Thing of the Weekend award is Max Verstappen. He only lasted 1 lap, but he did 2 things that I liked. A, didn't completely lose his crap when he was wiped out randomly on turn 1. Was very, very chill about it. And you go, good. It's a good mentality. This is what happens. You know, life's got bigger things. It's not going to affect how many nappies he has to change during the course of the week. And he got a bit of time off on a Sunday. The second thing was when he realised his qualifying lap was done by the yellow flag on Saturday, he gave Gabriele Bortoleto a tow. Just was like, I may as well give him a tow and help out this rookie. And you go, it's pretty good. It's pretty nice. It's kind. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. And honestly, Max was on my list of contenders. And
You've missed out.
Sure. Yeah, I know. But
Do you have a backup?
Someone will still say in the comments that we hate Max.
Oh my God, I get that all the time. Like most of the time, I'm arguing against like Steward's decisions. They go, you hate Verstappen so much. Why? Because I thought that decision should go a different way. It's very different from hating Verstappen. Anyway.
But this Hit the Apex award is probably the easiest one that we will do all year. Because it's very simple when you think about it, boys. It's the fact that the brake markers were Lego pieces.
What?
The brake markers were Lego pieces.
That's
They're not literally, but they looked like they had the little Lego notches on the top of them. And so my Hit the Apex award goes to the Lego marketing department.
You're an easily pleased man, aren't you, Chris?
I know.
Simple.
Brilliant.
You're a simple creature.
But also, didn't an advertising banner fall down earlier in the weekend?
Oh, yeah.
And if that had happened during the Grand Prix, that would have been an absolute disaster. Okay, and I think that leaves Scott. Scott, Stuffy Tuffy, who hit the apex for you?
Can I have two?
Of course you can.
Oh, I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to have to give it to Liam. My first main one is Liam Lawson. I think he was fortunate enough he didn't get wiped out by Kimi Antonelli. He actually dropped down to 9th place and then regained positions through great strategy. Only him and Alonso did that one-stop strategy, and that was, I think they were the only ones who finished in the points anyway, and it was a brilliant drive for him, his best ever in F1. The second one is to turn 3.
Turn 3 is great. It's great.
All weekend, if you watched any of the junior formulas, I highly recommend you go and watch the highlights of the F3 stuff and the F2 stuff. Of course, we already know what happened in F1, but turn 3, thank God for turn 3. It provides so much drama in relation to just overtakes, crashes, and the setup for the next run. God bless Red Bull Ring remaining on the calendar for the next 20 odd years.
I always say the best sequence of corners in Formula One is from turn 3, Silverstone, down the Wellington Straight, and then what's the left-hander? Brooklands into Luffield, and then down towards Copse. I've always said that is the best because you get a lot of like side-by-side racing. But for multiple chances, could we argue that start-finish straight until turn 5 in Austria is right up there in all-time
100%.
best sequences?
100%, along with Bahrain turns 1 through 5.
Good.
Yeah.
Then we all got that.
Small, just a quick little tidbit, because you brought up F2
Tidbit.
as well. The championship leader in F2 now, Richard Verschoor, is older than the Formula One championship leader.
That's a nice little fact. That's the kind of thing you get if you follow Chris, which you should. You should also follow Scott, Stuffy Tuffy, but you should definitely follow Richard Spanners Ready because I'm the main one. I'm like the best one on the panel. We'll be back midweek. I think we're going to try and catch up with Joe, and we're also going to do a Silverstone preview. And of course, we'll catch you live for if you're coming on the Saturday, although that will be released later in the week. But also we'll have our normal race review Sunday around 8 o'clock. But until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Oh my God, it's so hot. Right, everyone from abroad going, oh, the UK's not hot. Oh, mate, you should see our barbecue. We can cook food on the ground. The UK's super, you don't understand. It's muggy. Scott might die. He might not get to the end of the stream.